There is an age-old belief that the final words of a person hold the deepest truths of their life, offering a glimpse into their soul and the essence of their existence. For those who have lived extraordinary lives, these final words carry a significance that resonates beyond the individual. And when those words come from someone as revered and beloved as Mother Teresa, they take on an even greater weight. But what if I told you that her final words revealed a secret so profound, so startling, that they could alter the way we understand faith, suffering, and even the very nature of the afterlife? This is not just another story about a saintly woman who devoted her life to the poor and the dying. It is a deep exploration of the hidden struggles within the soul of a woman who, despite the darkness that overshadowed her, remained a beacon of light and hope for millions around the world. Before watching, write in the comments, "I open my heart to a miracle of prosperity. I accept, receive, and give thanks for all the gifts life has for me. The universe is working in my favor." If you want more hidden revelations like this, subscribe and turn on the bell. Don't miss anything. Mother Teresa, born in 1910 in Skopje, which is now part of North Macedonia, is synonymous with compassion and service. Her life's work in the slums of Calcutta, India, touched the hearts of countless individuals, and her dedication to the sick, the dying, and the destitute earned her the title of a living saint. For decades, she worked tirelessly in the most impoverished corners of the world, bringing comfort and care to those who had been forgotten by society. Yet for all her public acts of kindness, there was a private struggle that she kept hidden from the world, a struggle so profound and so deeply personal that it remained shrouded in secrecy until after her death in 1997. This struggle was not a physical one, but a spiritual battle that consumed her heart and soul, leaving her in a state of darkness and inner turmoil for nearly half a century. Mother Teresa's internal suffering was unknown to most of the world, and it was not until her death that the true extent of her spiritual anguish was revealed. Through a series of personal letters to her confessor, which were later published in a book titled "Come Be My Light," the world discovered that the woman often seen as the epitome of unwavering faith had spent much of her life battling a profound crisis of faith. In these letters, she described the darkness that enveloped her, a darkness so overwhelming that she felt abandoned by God. For nearly 50 years, Mother Teresa struggled with what many theologians refer to as the dark night of the soul, a state of spiritual desolation in which the soul feels completely cut off from God. She wrote, "This darkness surrounds me on all sides. I am unable to lift my soul to God. No light or inspiration illuminates my soul." These words, written in 1959, stunned her followers and raised questions about the nature of her faith. How could someone who had devoted her life to the service of others, someone regarded as a living saint, experience such profound doubt and spiritual emptiness? Yet despite her inner turmoil, Mother Teresa never wavered from her mission. She continued to serve the poorest of the poor, the sick, and the dying, even as she endured her own spiritual crucifixion. Her spiritual suffering, though invisible to the world, was as real and intense as any physical pain she had witnessed in the lives of those she cared for. In fact, many theologians argue that her experience of spiritual desolation was, in some ways, a reflection of the suffering of Christ on the cross. It is said that she embraced her inner darkness, not as a punishment, but as a means of sharing in the suffering of Jesus. She understood her spiritual emptiness as a form of solidarity with those who suffer, especially the most marginalized and forgotten members of society. Mother Teresa's deep commitment to this mission began in 1946, when she experienced what she described as a mystical calling during a train ride to Darjeeling, India. In that moment, she felt an intense inner urge, a call within a call, to leave the comfort of her life as a nun and devote herself entirely to the poorest of the poor. It was at this moment that she received the inspiration to leave the confines of her convent and take to the streets of Calcutta. She adopted a simple white sari with a blue border, a uniform that became the symbol of her mission. With a heart full of love and compassion, she entered the streets of Calcutta, a city where the forgotten and the forsaken lived in poverty and suffering. She saw herself as a servant of Jesus Christ, whose thirst on the cross was not one for water, but for acts of love and mercy toward others. In her mind, every act of kindness and every person she helped was an answer to that thirst. But even as she devoted herself to the suffering of others, Mother Teresa's own suffering intensified. She experienced what some spiritual writers call the spiritual crucifixion, a state of deep spiritual darkness where God's presence feels entirely absent. For decades, she continued her work with no sense of divine consolation or the feeling of God's love. Despite this, she believed that this darkness was not a punishment, but a means of participating in Christ's suffering. By staying in the darkness, she believed she was able to bring light to others. She saw her suffering as a way to fulfill the words of Jesus, "I was thirsty, and you gave me to drink." Even in her own spiritual drought, she gave what she had: love, compassion, and service to others. She famously repeated the phrase to her fellow sisters, "Stay with Mary at the foot of the cross." For her, this was not just a piece of advice, but a commandment to live by, an invitation to embrace the cross in order to be a vessel of hope and light for others. It is this very suffering that has been called into question by some, both critics and admirers alike. After her death, the release of her personal letters shocked the world. "Come Be My Light" revealed her private anguish, her internal darkness, and her constant yearning for a sense of God's presence that never came. For some, this was a revelation of Mother Teresa's deep humanity, proof that even the holiest individuals face moments of doubt and despair. For others, the question was more unsettling. Could someone who had lived for so many years without feeling God's presence truly be considered a saint? Did her faith exist, or was it all a facade? The very nature of sainthood was brought into question, as people began to wonder whether someone could be considered holy without feeling God's love or presence. Mother Teresa's final words and letters, however, reveal much more than just her inner suffering. They offer profound insight into the nature of faith, suffering, and the human spirit. Her suffering was not the absence of faith, but in many ways, a deeper form of faith. It was a faith that chose to believe despite not feeling the presence of God. Her journey through spiritual desolation shows that faith is not always about feeling God's love, but about choosing to act in love and compassion, even when those feelings are not present. Mother Teresa's life, her work, and her final words speak to the heart of what it means to walk in faith through the darkness, to hold on to love even when it feels out of reach, and to remain steadfast in one's mission, no matter the personal cost. The question of whether Mother Teresa's faith was real is not one that can be easily answered. It is a question that challenges our understanding of faith itself. True faith, as Mother Teresa's life and letters suggest, is not always about being certain of God's presence, but about continuing to walk the path of love and service, even when that path is shrouded in darkness. In the end, Mother Teresa's struggle and her unwavering commitment to her mission reveal a deeper truth. Faith is not about perfection, but about perseverance. It is about choosing to love, serve, and give of oneself, even when it feels as though God is silent. If you've made it this far, tell me in the comments what you think about this prophecy. I'll reply to the best comments. Mother Teresa's legacy is not only one of service to the poor, but also one of spiritual resilience. Her final words and letters serve as a testament to the complexity of the human soul and the mysterious ways in which faith works. Even in the absence of God's presence, she never stopped loving, never stopped giving, and never stopped believing that her work was fulfilling the will of God. Her life reminds us that sometimes faith is not found in the easy moments of light and joy, but in the difficult moments of darkness and suffering. It is a call to persevere, to love, and to trust in the divine even when we feel abandoned. And it is in these moments that we, too, may find a light that transcends our understanding, just as Mother Teresa did in her life of faith and service. Mother Teresa's life was one of dedication and unwavering service, a life that spanned decades of tireless work among the most destitute in the world. When we look at photographs of her, we see a woman who is always smiling, radiating joy and compassion as she works among the poor, the sick, and the suffering. Her words often echoed themes of love, service, and selflessness, but behind that serene smile and the gentle demeanor was a reality far more complex. What the world didn't know, what very few knew, was that Mother Teresa's outward joy was often at odds with the internal darkness she faced. It was as if, despite her radiant exterior, she was carrying a heavy burden that few could understand. In one of her most striking and candid reflections, she said, "If ever I become a saint, I will surely be a saint of darkness. I will be absent from heaven to bring light to those in darkness on earth." These words, so full of profound humility and sacrifice, seem almost paradoxical. The idea that someone who gave so much to others, who brought so much light to the world, would accept a life devoid of heaven's comfort for the sake of others, is almost too much to comprehend. Yet, this was exactly the essence of Mother Teresa's calling. She was not interested in the joy of eternal reward or peace, but in the suffering of those who felt abandoned by the world and by God. She believed that the ultimate sacrifice was not only to serve those in need, but to be a vessel for God's love even when that love seemed absent. And perhaps that is what makes her legacy so powerful, her willingness to embrace suffering, to endure darkness, so that others might find light. Mother Teresa's extraordinary devotion to those who were most in need began with her foundational vow to serve. Born in Skopje, now part of North Macedonia, her path was always toward a life of deep spirituality and service to the poor. After joining the Sisters of Loreto, Mother Teresa spent years teaching at a convent school in Calcutta. But it was during a train ride in 1946, which she described as a call within a call, that she felt the overwhelming urge to step away from the safety and security of her life as a teacher and become a direct servant to the poorest of the poor. The Missionaries of Charity, the order she founded, would go on to grow into a worldwide organization with thousands of members in over 130 countries. Throughout her life, she devoted herself to the care of the sick, the dying, the orphaned, and the abandoned. She founded homes for the dying, orphanages for abandoned children, and centers for those suffering from leprosy, AIDS, and other diseases. Despite her widespread fame and admiration from world leaders, Mother Teresa never sought accolades or recognition. In fact, when she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979, she did not attend the lavish banquet in her honor. Instead, she asked that the prize money be given to the poor, as she felt that the recognition was not for her, but for the mission that she had dedicated her life to. One of the most remarkable aspects of Mother Teresa's legacy was her unshakable belief in the inherent dignity and worth of every human being. She did not see people as statistics or faceless numbers, but as individuals, each with their own story and soul. She famously said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." These words encapsulated her philosophy. Everything, no matter how small, could be done with love, and in doing so, it could make a profound difference in the lives of those who were suffering. However, for all her selfless work and compassion, Mother Teresa was acutely aware of the increasing suffering and turmoil in the world. She often spoke out on issues that deeply concerned her, particularly the erosion of spiritual values and the conflicts tearing apart regions across the globe. One of her most prescient concerns was the situation in the Middle East. In 1991, during the Gulf War, Mother Teresa expressed grave concerns about the consequences of military intervention, fearing that it would only create more orphans, more destruction, and more suffering. She foresaw the immense toll that such conflicts would have on the innocent and vulnerable, and her words have proven to be eerily prophetic as the Middle East has continued to be embroiled in conflict and instability for decades. Despite the physical toll that her years of service took on her health, Mother Teresa's dedication to her mission never wavered. In her later years, as her health deteriorated, she continued to visit the sick and dying, offering comfort and solace in their final moments. She was determined that the Missionaries of Charity would continue their work long after she was gone. Her final days were spent ensuring that the order she founded would continue to carry out its mission of love and service to the poor. When Mother Teresa passed away in 1997, the world mourned deeply. People from all walks of life, from the poorest beggars on the streets of Calcutta to the world's most powerful political leaders, recognized that the world had lost a unique and rare soul. She was a woman who had lived not for herself but for others, giving all that she had to serve the most marginalized members of society. Her death marked the end of an era, but it also marked the beginning of a lasting legacy that would continue to inspire generations to come. Her legacy only grew in the years following her death. In 2016, Pope Francis canonized her as Saint Teresa of Calcutta, officially recognizing her holiness and the immense impact of her life and work. Yet, beyond the formal recognition of sainthood, her true legacy lies in the millions of lives she touched and the countless hearts she inspired. Her life and her work challenge us to consider how we serve others, how we bring light into the darkness, and how we live out our faith in a world that often seems indifferent to suffering. Mother Teresa's life was a paradox. She was an icon of faith who wrestled with doubt, a woman of light who lived in spiritual darkness, a saint who walked among sinners. And it is perhaps this very contradiction that makes her so powerful. In her, we see that holiness is not about feeling close to God, but about choosing love and compassion even when we feel abandoned or distant from Him. Mother Teresa's life reminds us that faith is not about certainty or feeling God's presence every moment, but about trust. Trust that even in the darkest times, love and service are the truest expressions of faith. Her final message to the world was not one of triumph or victory, but of sacrifice. She did not claim to have conquered doubt or suffering, but rather, she embraced it. Her willingness to live in the darkness while bringing light to others is the essence of her legacy. And in doing so, she left us with a profound lesson. The greatest act of faith is not to conquer doubt or fear, but to continue loving even when we cannot see the light. Mother Teresa's story is a testament to the transformative power of love and service, even in the most challenging and painful circumstances. Her life shows us that holiness is not about perfection, but about perseverance. It is not about living in light all the time, but about continuing to shine that light for others, even when we are walking through our own darkness. She offers us an enduring example of what it means to live a life of service, to love without condition, and to remain faithful even when the road ahead seems impossibly difficult. In a world that often values power, fame, and success, Mother Teresa reminds us that the true measure of a person's life is not in what they achieve for themselves, but in what they give to others. And in that, she remains an eternal beacon of hope and inspiration for us all. Now that you know this, I'll leave you with this video where we reveal another shocking secret. Click here before it's too late.